Iron treads split the mud with a patient certainty. No rush, no pause. A machine convinced of its destination because no destination exists outside its hunger. The first shell lands against its flank. A tremor passes through the idol's gilded skin, no fracture, no reaction. Heat spills in sheets that slough flesh from bone. In that instant, the trenches forget they were ever walls. They bend, they sigh, they buckle inward, seeking absolution in collapse. Smoke issues from the altar's mouth, an incense thick with exhausted certainties. It does not disperse. It drapes itself over the observers, seeping past cloth, past faith, into the hollow between breath and thought. There, it deposits the memory of another engine, another altar, another century when the same shape rose from the mire. A figure in oculus helm braces a reliquary rifle against the parapet, murmuring liturgies that taste of old milk. No retort, no recoil. The rifle dissolves to powder between their gauntlets. The calf is not offended. It simply declines to be recognized. Around its prow, the black clergy form a ring of deliberate violation. Each knife strikes not to end a life, but to prove that endings are illusions. Blood sprays in arcs too symmetrical to be accident. For a moment, they are beautiful. Then beauty curdles, sloughing into something older than shame. The idol lurches forward on its dais, and every foot of distance devoured becomes an acre of certainty undone. You glimpse the engine's core through seams in its bronze ribs, a glow that does not illuminate, a warmth that does not comfort. When the calf halts, it is never in retreat. It stops because the fuel has been found, the hush before the scream, the ache before the blade, the instant when faith surrenders its last hidden refusal. Nothing remains to identify what this machine once was. No crest, no seal. The only language it will speak is consumption, and it has begun. No chant precedes the ascent of his envy. No proclamation marks its possession of the idol's heart. The golden calf does not belong to the priests. It never did. Its engines grind in time with Moloch's rancor, every shudder an echo of the grievance that unmade him before the first rebellion acquired a name. Inside the iron chamber, you see it, splinters of a seraphic crown fused into the plinth. When the flames breach the seam, those shards sing. A sound thinner than regret, more enduring than wrath. It does not fade. It multiplies in the marrow. Once, he stood among the angelic procession, unable to sculpt even the smallest life. A thing revered but denied the craft he most desired. Creation. A promise never spoken, but made absolute by absence. When humankind was granted that gift without ceremony, Moloch's longing thickened into a hunger that could not be fasted away. The priests believe they negotiate. They scrawl contracts in lamb's blood. They whisper entreaties to the threshold of his hall in the sixth circle. But there is no bargaining with an ache that predates betrayal. Each offering is a stone laid upon the cairn of his denial. When a child's cries are fed to the calf's hollow gullet, he leans closer to the boundary separating his domain from the trenches. The fire intensifies not to consume, but to commemorate. His envy requires witnesses. It flourishes in the retinas of those who watch and cannot intervene. No prayer returns unsoiled. No plea crosses unscorched. His presence here is not a visitation, but an inheritance, bestowed on the golden calf the moment its forge cooled. Every victim dissolving in its crucible completes a covenant signed in the first moment of his fall. If the idol fractures, if the priests are consumed in their own sacrament, the hunger remains intact. It will find new steel, new hands, new thresholds to defile. The calf lurches again, and in that motion, the trenches understand the lesson. Nothing sated ever stays dead. The first altar is never alone. Smoke trails mark the path of others, each mounted on tracks that crush sanctified entrenchments to slurry. A procession without hierarchy, only appetite. From a distance, their silhouettes mimic sacramental pageantry. Up close, the resemblance is eaten hollow. Every dais bears an idol more gaudy than the last, each contesting for the adoration of the infernal court. Some adorned with bronze laurels, others clad in beaten gold sheets, etched with runes too ancient to decipher. All exude the same heat, a testament to Moloch's ambition metastasized across battalions. Liturgists in scalded vestments stride alongside, chanting canticles to no one. Their incantations dissolve into the roar of combustion as captives are heaved from cages and swallowed by the calves' incinerating throats. The victims are not chosen for defiance. Innocence simply burns more vividly. Where the idols advance, reality distends. Canvas sags from command posts, etched sigils curl into ash, brass cartridges blossom into corroded petals. This is the atmosphere of devotion without limit, every molecule made complicit. A sacrilege mortar lurches into range, spitting ordnance sheathed in Gothic glyphs. The impact punctures the first altar's hull, venting a shriek neither metallic nor mortal. For a moment, the procession stutters. Then it recalibrates, resuming its pilgrimage as though interruption were just another verse in the ritual. No standard flies above the column, no signal clarifies allegiance. Only the billowing flags of vaporized flesh and unspent prayers, carried on wind that recoils from their passage. When dusk arrives, the processional line becomes an illuminated ledger of slaughter. Each golden calf a punctuation mark in the sentence spelling the trench's extinction. The gaps between them crawl with black-clad attendants, repairing fractures, replacing knives, replenishing the unending queue of condemned. To watch them is to unlearn causality, to grasp that they march not toward victory, but away from any world that ever contained the possibility of mercy. No oath is spoken at the moment of offering. The knives rise not in defiance, but in rote submission to a script older than the notion of refusal. Every incision a confirmation that rebellion was always an afterthought. At the dais edge, a priest in a mask of riveted bone cradles a ledger stained black by generations of extinguished names. He traces each line with a trembling stylus, cataloguing the expiration of every plea. The record will not be preserved. The act of inscription is the only devotion required. When the next captive is dragged forward, she does not beg. Her silence is not courage. It is the hollow where courage once resided, now occupied by the certainty that nothing she surrenders will diminish the calf's appetite. The blade descends. The wound is less a termination than a punctuation, one more clause in the testament to creation's expendability. Blood fountains into the waiting trough, sluicing across engraved sigils that flicker once, then smolder to dull embers. The heat never lessens. No surge of triumph animates the clergy. Their gestures are choreographed for no audience. They understand what their scribes never admit. These sacrifices are iterations, not statements. Each repetition erases the significance of the last, until only the motion persists, shorn of purpose. Gothic energies sluice up the idol's flanks, sinking into seams where metal strains against the memory of being ore. The calf shudders, not in pain, but in recognition. Another offering authenticated, another wound transmuted into fuel. The priest withdraws the blade, and the viscera threads between altar and instrument, binding them in a covenant no theology can annul. The victim's eyes remain open, fixed on a point beyond the trench lip, where the sky flickers with a radiance too rancid to be dawn. Every breath spent in that place is a concession. No heresy here, no mutiny. Just the inexhaustible compliance of flesh to a design it cannot contradict. The priest who wields the blade is older than the trenches remember. His skin lacquered with successive restorations, each sacrifice buying another season of motion, another sequence of hollow appetites. He no longer recalls which century first granted him this lease on decay. When the flames lick his hands, he does not recoil. His nerve endings abandoned him decades ago. The price of each extension was sensation's erosion. What remains is the compulsion to persist, even as the marrow curdles. Behind the altar, caskets lined in iron cradle the failed recipients of rejuvenation. Bodies unrevived or warped beyond the threshold of utility. Their torsos buckle inward, bones softened by too many transactions with the court. Their deaths are not punishments, they are footnotes to an experiment that no longer pretends to be redemptive. The golden calf looms above these husks, indifferent to their dissolution. Each victim's vaporized certainty climbs its fluted spine, dissipating into a miasma that coats every observer's tongue. The taste is not bitterness. It is familiarity. The awareness that every ambition to outlast time becomes parody in the end. He draws a new blade, finer than the last, etched with runes spelling a name he forgot before the first extension. The edge hovers above another throat, and in the pupil's reflection, he glimpses himself as he once was. Devout, terrified, convinced the transaction would be singular. The knife lowers. The past self vanishes. In its place remains only the function. One more season harvested, one more cycle protracted. He tells himself this is victory over mortality. The lie dissolves before it fully forms. As the arteries yield their harvest, the altar trembles, and the priest feels the borrowed vitality flood his withered limbs. It will fade by nightfall. He will kill again, not to serve a patron, not to honor Moloch, but because inertia will not allow him to conclude. The idol watches without recognition. The process is neither condemned nor sanctified, just necessary. When the threshold fractures, the glow within the golden calf does not radiate, it seeps. A pallid luminance, too exhausted to claim authority, too constant to be ignored. Every priest in its orbit stiffens, breath stolen mid-canticle. The voice that issues from the rupture is neither sermon nor decree, just an emission, a resonance without origin. Those nearest stagger back, palms clapped over ears, though no sound breaches the trench. The vibration moves beneath hearing, through bone, along sinew, into the crevices of faith that never expected to be occupied. A captive buckles as the glow pierces her ribs, threading through the muscle like a curious parasite. Her heartbeat adopts a stuttering rhythm in time with the calf's hidden engine. Her eyes film over with a varnish that reflects nothing. When she exhales, the vapor curls upward in shapes too deliberate to be dismissed as chance. The priests scurry to reinforce the dais with incantations scored into brass sheets. Each word sags before it can adhere, letters liquefying under the influence of a will that does not acknowledge their relevance. This is no mere altar. It is a conduit through which something older than hell examines its reflection. A scream boils up from a kneeling acolyte. Mid-shriek, the sound splits, layering a second voice beneath his own, a dissonant litany that bleeds through every throat within reach. Each participant becomes a speaker in the circuit, transmitting fragments of a testament that neither promises nor indicts. Above the riven chassis, the glow pulses once, an arrhythmic semaphore. The priests freeze, knives arrested mid-arc, unsure whether the next incision will amplify the contact or extinguish it. When the vibration recedes, it leaves no explanation, no directive. Just the certainty that each sacrifice is less a tribute than an invitation, one that has already been accepted. The conduit does not close. It waits, a mouth unsealed, patient in its appetite for interpretation. The vent at the calf's apex yawns wider, exhaling a plume that does not disperse. The first rank of observers flinch as it drapes over them, not from heat but recognition. Every particle carries the residue of prior burnings, syllables unspoken, names never recorded. It is not smoke, but sediment, a composite of countless expirations fused into a single exhalation. When it touches the visor of an oculus helm, the glass opacifies with images, a procession of sacrifices performed in the same place by hands, indistinguishable from the presence. The visor cracks under the weight of reawakened testimony. A priest extends a censer in a gesture of defiance. The incense within ignites, then gutters out, leaving only the calf's vapor to suffuse the trench. Each breath drawn tastes of charcoal and betrayal. As the cloud thickens, silhouettes move within it, figures too malformed to be prior victims, too deliberate to be hallucination. One raises a blade of molten brass, and for an instant the observer believes they are witnessing a ritual from centuries past. Then the figure pivots, meeting their gaze through the haze. Its motion acknowledges the present. Its intention belongs to no era. A scream lances across the firebreak, dissolving before it can identify its source. The smoke condenses, tightening around those who dare to watch. In that moment, every witness feels the same sensation, the certainty that the vapor is not obscuring the past, but preserving it, carrying forward each atrocity intact. A squad of Garda Corps advances, respirators clamped tight, believing their filters sufficient. The first collapses, convulsing as memories not their own detonate behind their eyes. The second fires a bolt round at random, the shot ricocheting off the calf's flank to bury itself in the priest's throat. The plume retracts without dispersing. It coils into the idol's hollow, awaiting the next convocation. It has no urgency. The memories will keep. The second altar halts beside the first, its prow adorned with serpents coiled in the act of devouring their own tails. No sigil marks allegiance. Only the geometry of envy distinguishes it, a curvature more barbed, an elegance less forgiving. Within its furnace, Moloch's hunger coils tighter, incited by Mammon's claim. For each idol rolling across the trenches, another noble of hell insists it is theirs alone, that no other appetite can compare in rapacity. But only one covets the power of creation, with a fervor that eclipses mere avarice. The priests encircling the rival calf strike their blades deeper, hoping the amplitude of sacrifice will brand the offering beyond contestation. Blood cascades into the graven channels, each rivulet a declaration of proprietary desire. In their haste, they fail to note the discoloration, a hue not crimson, but a shade closer to bile. A concussive surge rattles the chassis. For a heartbeat, both altars flicker in unison, their flames synchronizing to a tempo older than any pact. Then the resonance fractures. Moloch's influence swells, a tidal force dislodging Mammon's lesser claim. The second altar shudders as its seams strain to contain the surge. A priest attempts to intervene, chanting a supplication to reaffirm loyalty. The words dissolve mid-air, syllables transmuted into a hiss that resembles neither speech nor denial. His mouth remains open long after the voice has left him. The rival idol's prow splits down the center, revealing a cavity slick with liquefied gold. From within, a convulsing shape lurches forward, some embryonic construct conjured in desperation to assert primacy. Its contours are unfinished, a parody of Genesis. It emits no cry, only a bubbling exhalation as its form implodes. The cavity slams shut, sealing the failure from sight. But the impression remains. Moloch's envy has devoured this claim as it has devoured every other, leaving only the certainty that no ambition will ever suffice. The first altar pivots minutely, as if acknowledging the contest ended before it began. The procession halts, not for respite. There is no fatigue in engines that run on forfeited innocence, but for selection. A pen of captives is unshackled, their limbs too numb for flight, their gazes already resigned to the ledger. The priest in the bone mask lifts a child no heavier than the reliquary he carried here. The little one does not weep. That protest was spent in the march. What remains is the quiet conviction that no parent will intercede, no intercession will matter. Moloch's envy condenses in the trench air. It thickens to a smog that tastes of warmed iron and the last flicker of consolation. The calf's maw opens with a hydraulic inevitability. No ceremony adorns this instant. No pronouncement dignifies what follows. The flames within do not roar. They murmur, a cadence pitched low enough to coax rather than consume. When the priest extends the child over the threshold, the heat does not sear immediately. It lingers, almost gentle, as if savoring the final heartbeat before reclamation. Somewhere behind the altar, a voice breaks. A mother's confession of failure in a tongue so old, no chronicler preserved it. The sound slices deeper than the blade ever could. It vanishes under the glow, leaving no echo. The child does not thrash. Only the eyes search, tracing the sky for a mercy that never learned this latitude. As the flames rise to claim the small form, the calf shudders, exhaling a sigh that scours the trench walls clean of any pretense of sanctity. In that instant, every observer is forced to confront the nature of this hunger. It is not conquest, not even punishment. It is the envy of a thing denied creation, determined to annihilate every testament to it. The altar seals itself with a hiss. No ash remains, no charred relic to commemorate the extinguishing. Only the certainty that the hunger has not receded, merely pause to savor what it has erased. The last fracture begins without declaration. A rivet groans, then snaps loose, skittering across the dais in a spiral too precise to be random. The seam it once secured yawns open, revealing a cavity that does not contain machinery, only absence shaped like potential. The priests stagger back, knives slack in their grasp. For the first time, no incantation issues from their throats. The golden calf does not demand supplication. It simply demonstrates that every devotion is a prelude to collapse. A tremor ripples down the idol's flanks, each shudder unseaming another length of its armored hide. From the rents pours a radiance the color of withered bone, a pallor that absorbs all other hues. The trenches bleach to monochrome in its glare. A Gardacorps marksman steadies his aim, sighting the exposed hollow. The rifle report is a futile punctuation. The round vanishes into the glow without resistance, as if it were memory, not matter. Inside the cavity, something stirs, a shape too incomplete to name, too resolute to ignore. It unspools like entrails glimpsed in a nightmare, no limb distinguished from intention. For a heartbeat, it seems to reach outward, a query in the language of endings. The priest in the bone mask lowers his blade and steps forward. He lifts a hand as if to offer the last denial he possesses. Before his fingers can bridge the gap, the glow flares. His outline dissolves in a flare of negative illumination. No residue marks where he stood. The shape retracts, the cavity seals, and the calf slumps upon its dais. No flame spills from its throat. No hymn issues from its seams. It has not been defeated, only concluded, as if the hunger has chosen to unmake itself, rather than persist unrequited. The trenches remain silent. No observer dares to advance. In the stillness, it becomes clear that no final revelation waits within the idol's husk. Only the hollow, unfinished, enduring, sufficient to annihilate explanation.